I think I'm kind of back. Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen. 'Tis I, Photo Dave. This is Toypixx, and in this video, the midway top 10 figures of 2023. Whew! It's a doozy. Gotta say, one thing that's kind of tough about this list is that I've been using the photo score, which we'll go over here in a minute, to pick the figures that I'm gonna add to my collection. And when you do that, all you really get is great figures. In fact, I've only gotten 20 figures this year so far, and only one of those 20 is actually a disappointment. As you can imagine, that makes coming up with a top 10 list kind of tough. Okay, because it was so instrumental in helping me decide my top 10 for the midway point of 2023, I figure it's important that I talk about the photo score. You've seen it mentioned in the YouTube shorts, but it's been a while since I've actually gone through it point by point and explained what it is exactly. So, let's do it, shall we? The first criterion is sculpt. If the figure has a brand new sculpt, it gets a point. That one. Very simple. The second criterion is paint. If the figure has paint all over it that just makes it look extraordinarily cool, besides just a little touch on the face, it gets a point. The third is whether or not the figure comes with one or more extra heads. That's it. That's the point. The fourth criterion, in case you're wondering, extra set of hands or more. Again, that's it. Straightforward stuff. The fifth criterion, does it come with weapons or stands or just extra accessories? Again, these are pretty straightforward points. The sixth criterion, does the figure have great articulation? Now, if the figure has just single-jointed elbows and knees and their neck can't move and they've got waist cuts and stuff like that, I say no. The seventh and craziest criterion is natural movement. And this might be where you're saying, okay, man, this is where Dave totally screws with all these figures that are awesome, man. Except he says no because no natural movement, man. And I don't even know what that means, man. And time to stop the stoner impression. Here's the deal when it comes to this whole deal. Yay, redundancies. It seems I'm really good at those. The thing is, when it comes to natural movement, I'm gonna need a figure to be able to bend their elbow like they should. They're gonna need to bend their knees like they should. When they move at the waist, first off, they need to move at the waist, but secondly, when they do, they can't leave like flat spots. Like, you can't just twist them and leave flat spots on, like, it looks like you could split a figure in half just right at their waist because of flat spots. You can't do that. That's why I'm always saying the way that MothX, McFarlane Toys, Valaverse, the way that Jada is doing their figures, that's how torsos need to be done, because that generally makes it so that natural movement is totally achieved. Not to mention, something else that I do bust figures on is when it comes to natural movement, if because they don't have that kind of articulation, when you twist them and it breaks up a design or it breaks up the sculpt, that's where natural movement gets tricky because, again, they don't have it there. But if the figure's really well articulated, if it's articulated beautifully in all the right places, and if the design accepts said articulation, it gets that natural movement point. Whew! There's a lot of time to spend on natural movement, but if you get a point in all 7 of those categories, the figure gets a 7 out of 7 photo score, and my top 10 all have 7 out of 7 photo scores because I used it for collecting. I'm a weirdo. Okay, enough of the preamble. Let's get into that top 10, but I'm going to start with the one figure that I'm disappointed to have in my collection for 2023. And I am disappointed in it, but you know what? When I think about it, that's 5% disappointment. That's 95% success. Ladies and gentlemen, in school, that's a 4.0. Wonder what my life would have been like if I'd gotten a 4.0 all the way through school. Huh. I'm guessing a snooze fest. Ladies and gentlemen, here he is, the only figure I have in the 2023 collection that I'm kind of disappointed with. Yes, it is the Hasbro Indiana Jones Adventure Series. Indiana Jones, kind of the first big deal. Now, he should have been a 6 out of 7. In fact, he was a 6 out of 7 on the photo score. So, yeah, the photo score isn't always perfect. He looks pretty good. The problem is, and I'm not even sure I can be disappointed about this because I knew it going in, when you bend his elbow, you can't get it back enough to simulate like he's winding up for a real punch. And that's pretty irritating to me. I do not enjoy that all that much. So that kind of bugs me, but again, I'm not sure how upset I can be since I knew that going in. What really bugs me is the face. That is not a Harrison Ford likeness. It looks like somebody playing Indiana Jones that isn't Harrison Ford. So that's one of the things that bugs me about this thing. It came with plenty of stuff. I mean, on paper, it should have been awesome. But it's so limited with the articulation, which again I knew, so how disappointed can I be there? But that face, for whatever reason, when it comes to Indiana Jones figures, I need the face to be right. And this just isn't. Now, in Hasbro's defense, Mezco's kind of looks the same, where it looks like somebody else wearing an Indiana Jones outfit. And SH Figuarts, while good, isn't quite there for me either. So, here's hoping Mafex comes to the rescue. But yeah, my one disappointment that's hanging out in the collection for 2023. Not bad, really. Now here we go with number 10. It is the most feared bounty hunter in the galaxy. Well, I mean, at least he was until he disappeared for a while because he got eaten. Gross. It is the SH Figuarts Book of Boba Fett, with Throne. Ladies and gentlemen, we're in the top 10, and remember that all of these figures have a 7 out of 7 photo score, so at this point, some preference for character comes into play, and I'm looking for every single little tiny nitpick to really try and get to number 1, but just so you know, I highly recommend every one of these figures. They are, in a word, incredible. So let's start with the SH Figuarts Book of Boba Fett at number 10. And this guy lands at number 10 for a couple reasons. And the first one is I was okay with the show. I wasn't one of those people that just absolutely hated it. But it wasn't my favorite thing and all that stuff. And the second reason is because Mafex is coming out with one of these. And those figures just fit my shelves better when it comes to the rest of my collection. This figure on its own is wonderful, and if you're a big SH Figuarts fan, you want this Boba Fett. He's truly incredible. But for me, I don't know if I'm going to keep him or if I'm going to get the Mafex one. What I might do is just gamble, pick up the Mafex one and see how he compares to this one and then decide which one to sell. I don't know, but truly the only reason I would consider the Mafex one is just because that fits in better with my collection. Otherwise, this is a wonderful Boba Fett figure. He comes with extra head, he comes with, well, he's got the helmet, of course, right there. He has all kinds of hands, all kinds of effects. That Tamara Morrison likeness is actually really good. No, it's kind of hard to tell, and people would tell you that it's not that great, but if you see in the shadow here, as I'm just spinning him around a bit, let's zoom in, get the focus, you can see the shape is there. I mean, this is an incredible figures. So if you're in the market for a Book of Boba Fett, and you're not the big Mafex fan that I am, this is probably the figure for you. Truly, he's a great one. At number 9, we have, from a relative newcomer company in the action figure game, a character from Street Fighter, Jada Toys' Ryu. Fight! Ryu from the Jada Toys Street Fighter line is perfect. He's fantastic. And he comes in at number 9, beating out a much more pricey Boba Fett. Now, the reason that is because I'm considering whether or not I'm going to get rid of that Boba Fett, whereas I am not getting rid of Ryu here. He is a wonderful figure. He comes with one set of extra hands, he comes with an extra head, he comes with a Hadouken, and he moves comparably to a lot of Mafex figures. In fact, he beats the female figures because their elbows don't do a whole lot when it comes to range, and their ankles don't do a whole lot when it comes to range. He is just an absolutely remarkable figure. Ryu on his own has me thinking I gotta go back and pick up more Jada stuff, even though I've heard June, who is the lead designer, I believe, for Jada Toys when it comes to their action figures, it sounds like he said things like, yeah, those earlier ones, that wasn't my best work. That's okay, June. I want to go back and I want to get your earlier stuff and just go through to what's going to happen, because these are incredible. And I only have Ryu. I hear Fei Long's better. I just don't have them yet. So I am super stoked for this. I want all the Jada stuff, and it is based solely on this figure because, ladies and gentlemen, he is that good. And now, coming in at number 8, we have the first figure from this year's Mafex Deluge. The wallet is still recovering. Valerie's little sister, the Huntress. Okay, so let me tell you why Huntress comes in at number 8, because like I said, with great figures, with all 7 out of 7 photo scores in this list, I have to come up with the nitpicks, the reasons why they can't be number 1, even though they're all incredible figures. For Huntress here, it has to do with how her hair messes with the cape. I do wish a lot of these companies would start making it so hair was a little further away from the head, or maybe even went kind of straight out, specifically for flying characters. And I know that Huntress isn't that, but if they could just mold the hair so it was a little more out of the way to give these things a little more range, because it really does kind of mess with the cape when it comes to Huntress here. So there's that, and there's the fact that her hands are insanely loose. That hand there holding the bow, it just falls off. I could just pick her up, it might fall off right now. So that's a little irritating, but still, she's a phenomenal figure. She's the first figure I've ever had where the wire goes down the sides of the cape and goes across the bottom. And Mafex did a lot more of that this year, and it is wonderful. So yeah, there's also the fact that Mafex seems to take really special care with their DC property. I'm not saying they don't do a good job with the Marvel, but the DC stuff is just next level. I don't see ever needing another version of this Huntress or anything else I've gotten from them that's DC. And frankly, I don't really see needing another version of most of the Marvel. But again, the DC stuff, next level. It's hard to explain until you've got it in hand. And now, coming in at number 7, the star of everybody's favorite Wolverine Wednesday, the Medicom Mafex X-Force, Wolverine. Now, I've said that every figure in this top 10 is a 7 out of 7 photo score. When I think about the review I did for this Wolverine, I gave him a 6 out of 7. It was highly nitpicky, but there's the whole twisting down here. When you twist a little bit of his leg, like this, hang on, you can see that because I did that, it breaks up a little bit of the sculpt between the top of his leg and the waist piece here, the color. And there, yeah, it's nitpicky for sure. And something else that kind of keeps him this low is that there's not a lot new here. I do appreciate that they sculpted a lot more of the wrinkles in the clothing. I think that's great. I think it works beautifully for the comic art. And I think it's disingenuous, honestly, for me to say there's not much new here. It's simply that I have Wolverines. I love Wolverines. I love all the Wolverines. So sometimes I sit back and I think, okay, Dave, you can't just put number 1 for Wolverine for everything. And maybe I grade him a little more harshly than I do another figure. But at the same time, I do have another Wolverine. So it doesn't feel as new as some of the others. Still, highly recommended. A great figure. And if you're into those X-Force books, you pretty much need this guy. He's that good. At number 6, we have the old avocado head himself, though he did not in fact come with an avocado head. We have Medicom MothX's X-Force Deadpool. And here we have the X-Force Deadpool. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the first Deadpool I've had in quite some time. I don't have the red MothX Deadpool, and I'm definitely hoping for a reissue on that one. But in the meantime, this Wade is a really, really good Wade. Again, he has that thing where if you spin his hips just a little bit or at the thighs, he'll break up the design just a touch. But he feels a little tighter than a lot of MothX figures. I can't figure it out exactly. I guess I can't figure out how to explain it. But he just has a really good feel to him. I like the way that he works. I like the way that he moves. He does come with trigger hands, even though he doesn't come with guns, so you can find some weapons to work with your Deadpool here. I don't know. I think the thing that kind of keeps him a little lower on this top 10 is really just that he's not the red Deadpool. I look at him, he's a perfect representation of the X-Force Deadpool, but he's not what I think of as the Deadpool. And really, if I'm being honest, that shouldn't hurt him at all. But again, if I'm being honest, I think it does. Still, just as with all the other figures, this is a wonderful figure, and if you dig the X-Force Deadpool, you pick this guy up, you'll never need another 1/12 scale X-Force Deadpool for as long as you live. Or until they do a whole lot of articulation upgrades. At number 5, we have one who many consider, yours truly included, a somewhat undersized Norse god, but I gotta tell you start messing with him, you start putting him in poses, and if you're watching this, you probably know how to use a camera to make him look a little bigger. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the Medicom MothX Thor. And now, folks, let's talk about the Medicom MothX Thor. Okay, here's the thing. I am in the camp that thinks he should be a little taller. I know I've seen enough evidence. I know that Kirby drew him pretty much the same size as everybody else. And if that's what MothX was going for, then I can't be mad. They obviously achieved what they were going for, and he's a phenomenal figure. But for me, I'm looking at the Marvel Handbook. And in the handbook, he should be just a little taller than everybody else. He should be like 6'6". So, whereas I think this one's a little too small, I think the Marvel Legends one is way too big, and I think this one on his own, like if you only got one Thor figure ever, and it was this one, you would be insanely stoked, especially if you're like a big-time Thor fan, and you get this Thor, and you're done. Your collection's now complete, because he is that good. Now, I will say, one thing I wish MothX would do, and I wish this because I'm seeing what Jada's doing, is I wish when it came to figures like this, with the longer hair, that they would use a much softer plastic, maybe even a rubbery material, if possible, so that you could turn the heads a little bit more. Or, set him so he could fall. That's bad juju, Thor. I don't know what you were thinking. That is not very verily at all. But yeah, right now his head can't turn much. But still, you look at this thing. Geez, I'm not doing so hot at all, am I? You look at this thing, and he just looks right. He looks like your classic Thor. I don't see that we can say much as a standalone figure, but I do understand what everybody's complaints are when it comes to standing him with your other Mafex figures. However, if you're watching this, you might be into photography, and you know that foreshortening will go a long way towards making him look the size you want him to look. So, there he is, Thor, at number 5. At number 4, we have my second favorite X-Men character, Miss Monroe herself, an actual goddess. If by actual, I mean totally fictional goddess. We have the Medicom Mafex, Storm. And in case you couldn't tell who this was, ladies and gentlemen, we have gone from a puny god to a legit weather goddess. We have Aurora Monroe Storm, and not gonna lie, this is the figure I was most looking forward to this year. Now, the things that keep her from being a little higher are, and this is gonna make me sound like a horrible person, but because she's a female figure and because of what Mafex does with their female figures, there's not much you can do with her ankles down there. They don't go very low. But I will say that the reason she ranks up here higher than Huntress is because her arms are thick enough where they made it so her elbows bend a lot more than any other female figure I have from Mafex. And I find that just remarkably cool. I'm really stoked about that. She has the crazy lightning effects that we all know she doesn't actually... I mean, she can't actually use them like that if you follow the comic, but in the cartoon, I guess she did that. And by the way, this white here, obviously the incorrect color. There is no way that you can hit light on white and give it the look that you had in the comics that Jim Lee drew. So, you know, I'm thinking black, like really black leather, or possibly silver. And I can't wait for one of those inevitable repaints, because I'll get that too, because I just dig Storm that much. Now, something else that's kind of a drawback with this figure is how difficult it is to pull off her head and replace it. Now, once you do it, you're good, and I did have a shoulder pad fall off when I did it, but it snapped back in. It's no big deal. But it just feels like you're gonna break her, and I hate when I'm messing with figures and I feel like I'm gonna break them. It doesn't make it quite as much fun. Still, Storm, awesome X-Men character, and even better X-Men figure. Okay, maybe not, maybe the character's better. I don't know what I'm saying anymore, so let's move on, shall we? At number 3, we have the only action figure in my collection that I can call Dick, and it won't get mad at me because, you know, I'm pretty sure these things are alive. It is the Medicom Mafex Nightwing. Look at this guy. Look at how good Dick Grayson looks. I mean, come on. How do you get much better? At the number 3 spot, you know that he's going to be a great action figure, and I had to look, and I had to get nitpicky, and I had to figure out, why wouldn't I put this guy at number 1? And here it is. As much as I enjoy the gimmick to swap out the back, doing so is a pain in the butt, and maybe I'm doing it wrong, but it's just an insane pain. And also, one of the pieces that holds his baton in the other back ended up falling out. Now, I can put it back in, so it's not a big deal. And the reason it fell out was my fault, so I'm not going to sit here and bust Mafex for it. But it's just one of those things where I'm like, oh man, he's a really good figure. He's really good. I mean, he's number 3 on a list of like the best that I've gotten this year. So obviously I'm going to recommend Nightwing, and I don't think you'll be disappointed if you pick this guy up. He is what happens when you take a simple design and just nail it. You just make it perfect. He's such a cool figure. Such a good look to this guy. Like, I could sit here and talk about his articulation, but all Mafex figures seem to have pretty good articulation, at least the male ones. So, yeah, I don't think there's much more to say here. Just, if you really dig this figure, if you dig the character, go get you some Mafex dick. Coming in at number 2, we have the Master of Magnetism. We have Charles Xavier's old chess buddy. We have the guy that really should have been on the cover of Captain America #1, punching you know who. Except it was called Captain America #1, so maybe not. But it makes sense, right? I mean, I'm not alone on an island here. Anyway, it is, of course, the Metacom Mafex Magneto. Okay, before we get into this, let me make one thing perfectly clear. I will never need another action figure based on this classic Magneto design, just as I will never need another action figure based on pretty much every design that you've seen in this top 10 list. They just crush it. This guy, though, I was waiting for him. I wasn't as eagerly anticipating him as I was Storm, but when he got here, holy crap, I was pleasantly surprised. I love what they've done with the cape. It just has the right amount of almost shimmer to it. The boots have a perfect shine. The little neck piece that goes around there that holds the cape down, that thing looks great. The helmet is the right amount of just perfect glisten, I guess. He comes with just a helmet that he can carry. He comes with one of those head sculpts that is all blacked out, like how Jim Lee used to draw when it was time for Magneto to get all menacing. He is a phenomenal figure. So what puts him at number 2? What keeps him out of the top spot? Well, I'll tell ya. If you check him out here, it's kind of hard to tell. This does not seat all the way down. Now, I'm sure there's a reason. I'm sure that Mafex had a reason to do that because they tend to not do things without thinking about them. So maybe it's better for the cape overall. Maybe if they had glued it down, then the cape wouldn't have been as functional. Maybe it would have been more prone to tearing. I don't know. But that is all that keeps him at number 2, because when you raise the shoulders, sometimes that goes up just a bit, and it doesn't have as cool a look as you'd like to have. But overall, this is the Magneto for anyone's collection that's into 1/12 action figures. You get this, you never need another one, and I like to joke, but this time, I ain't kidding. Okay, before we get to number 1, you know the drill. It's time for the honorable mentions. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, YouTube has turned us all into these people that just keep making you have to sit longer. It's really quite insidious, so don't worry. I'll get through these fast. The first one is that little fuzzball from Endor that you would think has no business being in any kind of anything, but he's perfect. He is the perfect of these little yub-nubs that the Star Wars Black Series has put out. And here we go, the first honorable mention, which I'm sure you guessed because my clues were anything but subtle, is Wicket from the Hasbro Star Wars Black Series line. This guy is wonderful. If you've been following me on the social media for any length of time, you know that I can't help but just mess with Wicket all the time. This little dude is hilarious, and he's small enough to actually still be a pocket figure. He's great. Now, he doesn't come with an extra head, he doesn't come with extra hands, but objectively, I had to give him a 5 out of 7 photo score because I do think he has about as much articulation as you can fit on there, but subjectively, he doesn't really need another head or hands. He's just a fun little dude that is perfect. Like, I look at this thing, I will never need another Wicket figure. And for me, that's, well, believe it or not, that's worth the $25. This next honorable mention is actually 3 figures that come to us from Valaverse. Now, the reason that I'm grouping them all together is they're pretty much the same mold, but they sure are rad. The second honorable mention goes to the ladies of the Valaverse Action Force line. These figures are fantastic. The one thing that keeps them out of the top 10 and leaves them in the honorable mention spot, because honestly, they should all be 7 out of 7s on the photo score, and they are. But it's the fact that I constantly still, to this day, have to heat them up to pop out the hands and everything else. So the fun factor isn't there with them as much as it is other figures. Still, Bobby Vala's team is crushing it on these figures. And in fact, Valaverse is one of those lines I really look forward into getting into more. I just love these things. And Eclipse here, definitely my favorite. I couldn't exactly tell you why. I think it's just her look. I think it's the colors. I think it's just her look. Now, one thing that I've been busted for, people continue to try and bust me for, I think, is I've made the point of saying one thing I really love about these is how they can hold their guns correctly, and people will grab their G.I. Joe figures and try to set them up and say, oh, look at this, G.I. Joe figures can do it too. I have nothing against the G.I. Joe classified line. I think they're great, but I wish they came with more hands. And that's the point. The way she's holding the gun here, because of the hand she comes with, is the correct way to actually hold a gun. When you have 2 trigger fingers, you can't hold that pistol properly. So that's the whole point I make with that stuff. And that's something that Action Force can do. They can, they can hold their stuff correctly because they have all the hands. So that's something I keep bringing up also, because I'd like Classified to do the same thing, because it makes a big difference for photos. And the final honorable mention, and it was tough for me to put them in the honorable mentions, because if you've been paying attention to my social media feeds lately, you know I've been having a lot of fun with these guys. This last honorable mention features 4 brothers from New York City's underground. And the final honorable mention, which I'm sure no one could guess from the clue, is the NECA Mirage Studios Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4-pack. Oh my goodness, if you've been paying attention to the Toypixx socials lately, you'll see just how much fun I'm having with these things. You'll also see that Mikey is the best turtle. Fight me in the comments. Anyway, folks, these figures move remarkably well for being turtles. My only real issue with how they move is in the shoulders, but you can turn the shoulders, actually where they meet with the upper body, and kind of fake it a little bit. So you can make the arms go a little higher, you can get a good elbow pose in and all that. I don't want to move these guys right now just because I'm afraid I'm going to knock somebody over. But yeah, I am over the moon with these figures. They're so much fun. They get a 6 out of 7 photo score basically because they just didn't come with extra heads. But we can bet that NECA's got all kinds of extras and all kinds of repaints of these figures coming for us somewhere down the line. My one request is they keep all those figures the same color and maybe give us the Toon style bandanas and maybe just give us a lot more different hands and different accessory packs for them, or just, maybe release these guys individually and have them come with different accessories and all that. I'm afraid that as much as I try to be good with Mr. Stabby, the wallet, that any of these turtles that NECA releases, I will be in for, because to me, these are the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I loves me the Mirage run. And with that, let's get to number 1. And finally, coming in at number 1 at the halfway point through 2023 is a figure that I knew Medicom Mafex would do well. But I didn't know just how well. I didn't know how hard they'd go. Some might say they went hard as steel. I need to stop talking. Some might also say that. Ladies and gentlemen, we have John Henry Irons, Medicom Mafex's Steel. Okay, I don't know about you, but when Steel was announced, I was really excited to get a version of Steel. But it wasn't like he was the guy I was looking most forward to. That said, when I got a hold of this dude, I put up a tweet, something like, "This is probably Mafex at its best firing on all cylinders," and I still think that's the case. They did this thing absolutely perfectly. Just like with Magneto and Nightwing and several other characters on this list, you will never need another version of Steel in this costume. He is absolutely fantastic. If you can see, check out, let's zoom in a bit here. Just check out the finish on that guy. Check out how the lights hit him. And just show off the shine. This figure is fantastic for photos. He is just so good. The way he moves is incredible. The way they did his shoulder pads, they're kind of a rubbery material, so they get out of the way. It's no big deal to mess with Steel a little bit, to set him up to do all the things. He is absolutely the perfect Steel, and this is why he's number 1 on my list. He ends up being the best Mafex release, to me anyway, when it comes to this year, so far in 2023, and I don't see him getting dethroned, again, at least when it comes to Mafex, because the only other one I have on pre-order is Poison Ivy, and she looks good, but she'll have the same ankle hindrances and all that stuff that the other ladies do. But yeah, I guess if I were to say there was something that I wish Mafex did when it comes to Steel, I wish that they'd included a John Henry Irons head sculpt. I mean, he's got, I believe, 3 head sculpts total for this figure. He's got all the accessories, by the way. Like, he's a Mafex figure. He has all the things. But I do wish they had a face that just didn't have the mask on, and I think that would totally seal it. But as is, what we got here ends up being absolute perfection. And good lord, I hope Mafex just keeps this awesome train rolling. And those, ladies and gentlemen, are my top 10 action figures of 2023 so far. Now do me a favor and comment below and let me know what your top 10 of 2023 so far are, because I know that with so many great action figures out there right now, no one's top 10 is going to be like anyone else's. There's so much cool, our tastes are so much different. Just let me know, because I want to see what you think is cool, because I might need to pick up some of what you think is cool as well. As for the rest of the year, I'm insanely stoked about what Medicom has coming. I'm incredibly excited about what Jada has coming, especially at their price points. Valaverse right now is crushing it. Spiro Toys with their Animal Warriors of the Kingdom. I still need to pick some of those up, but no one has said anything bad about those figures, so I need to check them out. I'm highly stoked about what's going on with NECA right now with their Mirage Turtles. Seriously, I will pick up pretty much any Mirage Turtles they actually release. Those are my turtles, but yeah. And then who knows what gets announced at SDCC. I mean, this could be just a massive year. The best year for just what is so cool out there about this whole hobby. Whew! But enough about that. Here's the thing. I always appreciate the fact that you guys stuck through and watched this to the end, and for those of you, because you stuck through and watched it to the end, I've got two things for you. The first thing is there's a link in the video description below that'll take you to a bunch of backgrounds I made, so if you don't have them yet, click that link, and what you'll do is you'll put those backgrounds on your monitors, set up action figures in front of the backgrounds, take the pictures. Hopefully those help you out in your toy photos. And the other thing is, of course, the Entertainment Earth link in the video description below as well that'll save you 10% off all in-stock things. So, with that said, thanks again for checking out the video, and until next time, have fun and happy snapping. See ya!